Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor. Get off of Twitter during political season. You can't even block people anymore there, right? Go over, talk Heat with us, with other Heat fans all day long. Plus, you get stage shows, Q&As, and more. It's our Discord server, Off the Floor. It's $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Includes Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down $5, you play it, they give you 50 more. That's it. That's the deal. You can play, of course, NFL, NHL, MLB playoffs, and soon the NBA, as well as all of the other sports. So check it out, prizepicks.com. Use the code F-I-V-E. Set your lineup, start playing today, and get free money to play. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. We got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. And tonight, with Brady Hawk in the arena and Greg taking part of the night off, we've got our friend Major Passons. Of course, follow him on Major Money, which that's on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. That was originally supposed to be people fading you because you pick so poorly. But you actually are not as bad as we thought. So you may not have any use there anymore because that was part of the deal here. But Major also covers Sioux Falls for us. Check out the Force podcast that he does with our guy, Matt Hannafin, and also appears often on our Playback channel, which we were on there again today. Playback.tv/5RSN. If you want to check that out with us, you can watch the games with us this season. We're going to be on there. We're going to be on Discord. And, of course, we're going to be here. Miami Heat win again, another preseason win. This was an unexpected game because this was supposed to happen last week, but it got postponed to today. And the most surprising thing before I get to the 3 themes of this episode is that the starters played. And actually, this will be one of the themes of the episode, but the starters played. And not only did they played a lot. And Spoelstra basically played something close to what the rotation is going to look like at the start of the season until he, of course, subbed in the Summer League team to close, which we'll get to Major on that. And I actually think this would be a great idea. I think this season they should just tell Jimmy Bam and Tyler and Duncan, all of them, just take a seat in the last 5 minutes and let Larson and Christopher and Ware and Keshad Johnson and I guess Isaiah Stevens, or just let them close because they'll all be, most of those guys will be on 2 ways or be on the team. But we're going to have 3 themes I want to get to today because first thing, I think it's been a good preseason. I think that the energy in the Bahamas, and I was down there, was good. There seems to be a certain level of camaraderie with this team, and they seem to be willing, and particularly their head coach, to get in the lab this offseason. And so I want to get through 3 themes here with you guys, and let's get into which you think are most important and most sustainable. The first one is availability, and that's what Riley focused on in his end-of-year press conference. I don't think it's coincidence that he had the starters play a back-to-back in the preseason. Like, part of it is trying to get them reps together, but I think part of it is you guys are going to fucking play this year. Like, just the fact that they're out there 2 straight games like they were, I don't know. To me, I found that to be significant. Were you guys surprised? I mean, I'll start with you, Alex. Were you surprised that he went with them again? Because I don't think we're seeing any of them on Friday in Memphis.
Yeah, and I think that's what we expected for this game, that it was going to be, mostly the back end roster guys. I'm definitely think it's going to happen in Memphis now, but who knows? I was absolutely surprised. I think specifically that not only that they started, but how much they played. It wasn't just like a quick stint and then out type of thing, right? Which was I was also wondering after they announced that they played a lot, right? Like they played a good amount of time, and then the bench unit with guys that we're going to see all season play the amount of time. So we've gotten a couple of, somewhat dress rehearsals through 3 quarters over the past couple of games. So that's been cool to see. And I understand why. Like, we know obviously that starting lineup did not play a single minute together last season. So trying to get more minutes there, before it actually starts counting, it makes sense. I think it makes sense. The only thing I would, be picky about, I understand why, so I don't think it's a big deal. It's like, it would be cool to see them work in like some of the rotations that they plan on doing during the season, as opposed to the hockey 5-man subs that they've been going about. Because I'd be surprised if that was the case headed into the season. If Spo just completely changes his philosophy there as well, with subbing guys out, all of a sudden he's just going to be a 5-man bench unit type of guy. I would be surprised if that was the case with everybody healthy. But other than that, like, I think it's good to get everybody in a rhythm, especially like units that haven't played together very much, specifically that starting lineup. Other than that, like, it's just going to be interesting to see how they go about it when the season actually does start. Who's going to be the the 1 or 2 guys from the starters that stays with the bench units? What are the rotation patterns? Who, like, is there going to be a pattern where you try to keep like Terry, Duncan, and Bam together, or maybe the patterns where Jimmy and Love play together? Because those are like the types of stuff we've seen before. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But you know what? Like, you had to get a lot of minutes for that starting 5. There's no doubt about it. And I think they've achieved that.
Yeah, we'll get into more about the starting 5, particularly on the offensive end. But Major, I thought one of the things I took away as Alex was talking about rotations there, is that it seems to me like Spoelstra has an idea of what the bench core is going to be, but there are a couple of options sort of for that 9th spot if he ends up only 9. And we've seen in the last 3 preseason games, he's kind of given one of the guys a rest or bumped one of them down. So essentially, we know it's going to be Jaquez and Duncan and Highsmith, I think. But then Love has gotten minutes there. Bryant has gotten minutes there. And then in the backcourt, we've seen Drew Smith get the minutes first in the last. And then this game, he came in after Burks played with Duncan. How do you think that shakes out? Do you think that's going to be more of a game-to-game thing? Because I thought it was really interesting, the Burks-Duncan minutes together. And I feel like he's going to go to that again, actually.
Yeah, I think exactly what you're saying. I think it's going to be game-to-game, because if you look at all the combinations that they can do, there's really not one that you're like, that works in every scenario. So, for instance, they're playing the Hawks, a team that doesn't really play great defense, and it's preseason, and I know rotations for other teams are different as well, but you can lean a little bit more offensive because they were generating turnovers. So like Burks fits perfectly in that, and you don't need a Drew Smith guy to help create turnovers because they're able to do that even without him. I was surprised at how much Kevin Love has played this preseason. I really didn't think he was going to play at all. There's really like no need to play too many minutes. You already know what he's going to be. You know how he fits with the whole team. But yeah, you do have to work off some rust. But I don't think he's going to be playing a ton anyways in general. He's going to be playing spot minutes in the matchups that really favor him. We talked about this last playoffs. There's some matchups that he's just not useful on. So he's not a guy that you can just play no matter who they're playing. Thomas Bryant, fans are going to hate that. He's going to get minutes. It's going to happen. Spo likes him. The Heat brought him back. They didn't like promise to pay him less or anything. They just wanted to bring him back. So he's going to play. I think part of that is where also I don't think's ready in the first, especially in the first half of the season. So that's an opportunity for Thomas Bryant to play some minutes until Ware is ready. And then maybe at the second half of the season, Ware kind of takes that rotational spot. So I think it's very game to game because, like I said, I just don't see a lineup where you're like every single game that this is going to be the lineup. They have a lot of options at the end, like we're talking about, like you're saying. And so we need specific guys for specific games, how maybe the game is going. I think Burks, though, has been the person that's kind of stood out the most to me. I did not think he was going to be this good. I didn't think he was really going to offer much at all this year and just play some spot minutes as a veteran guy to eat up some minutes maybe when someone's hurt or something. Now I actually see him as a legit person to get minutes even when the team's healthy. So that is kind of the wrinkle, the difference I have after the preseason. Everything else, I kind of have the same thoughts.
Yeah, and Alex, you were onto that. I mean, I think you liked the signing, thought he'd get the minutes. I like the signing simply because, and we talked about, as you said, he averaged 17 in the playoffs last year when he was forced into action. But he shot 41% from three over the past 4 years. I mean, there is a track record here. And if anybody's going to utilize a specialist, it's Spo, and then find a little bit more that they can get out of him. I just think using him, and he has been used as a de facto point guard at times in his career, but that presents a different option. The Burks Duncan minutes are interesting to me. I mean, it does provide spacing, and Duncan can handle a little bit too. So at least they can play off of each other. And I do think if you're looking at Burks, Duncan, Jaquez in that group, there's some versatility on offense, and they were very happy about the Burks signing. Like, they made that move right away. I said this on playback tonight. I know Heat fans were like, "Oh, you would have been better off with a Gary Trent," something along those lines. And the point that was made to me and needs to be sort of reinforced to fans is that sometimes you can't get the guy who's higher in the pecking order at a particularly salary slot, because that player is looking at your situation and saying, "I need to rehabilitate myself for my next contract." And I know that Trent was one who went to Milwaukee because he saw an opening to play a lot, because Beasley was gone. They don't have a lot of spacing guards there. And in Miami, you have Duncan and you have Tyler on the roster. And so there wasn't. And I was also told the same happened with Tyus Jones. One of the reasons Tyus Jones went to Phoenix, he's going to start. In Miami, that would not have been the case. So everybody's like, "Well, why didn't you spend the minimum on this guy?" They identified Burks as a guy that played well in the playoffs. And that's exactly what was said to me. We liked what he did in the playoffs. And, he played in a high pressure situation. He played well, and he knows how to play. So I do think he's a guy who's going to sneak into some minutes. The interesting part is going to be what happens when Josh Richardson is healthy, and whether or not he takes those minutes. All right. After the break, I want to get to two more themes here. So I want to mention another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our friends over at the Real Estate Shop. You're going to hear from them on every postgame this year. We're doing a Defending the House segment. We're going to identify, it's going to be Greg a lot of the time doing this, identify the defensive player of the game, or the defensive play of the game, or the defensive breakdown of the game, whatever it is. We're going to get into something related to defense. We also want to mention, though, what the Real Estate Shop actually does. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. What they do is they help buyers and sellers in real estate with their honest, approachable, smart, nimble, and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. They got a proven on-market strategy. Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because they know this market. Basically, that's the whole thing here. They know the market, and they will work with you again to get the best possible deal. So reach out to them on Instagram, the Fort Lauderdale Realtor. That's on Instagram, the Fort Lauderdale Realtor. Call them at 954-268-9812. That's 954-268-9812. Or just go to Real Estate Shop. That's 2 P's and an E. RealEstateShopFL.com. So since we're going to be doing this Defending the House segment, I might as well just intro it here. We'll get to the offense in a second. It's clear, other than availability, there were 2 other places of emphasis this offseason. And this has come out now in every game. And on the defensive end, it is just activity. It's activity. Like it is, and I think it was 14 steals today. The deflection numbers, I would assume, are way up. And you know who it's starting with is Jimmy. And we've talked about this, Alex. Like sometimes, everybody talks about the scoring with Jimmy. Like, if he's engaged in a game, if he's got 2 or 3 steals. And he has been engaged defensively. Like he's not in takeover. He had 24 tonight. It didn't seem like it. But he has been engaged defensively from the jump. And today he was, even though Chris Paul wasn't on the other side. We've had questions about something.
And on a back-to-back.
On a back-to-back too, right? Like that's what I'm saying.
This is the preseason.
Any activity. Exactly. Exactly. There wasn't a tennis match to go to. I was just kidding. But here's the thing, okay? That I use my slogan on 790. Here's the thing. I don't know why I just went back into that. But the activity thing with them, like I'm a little surprised, to be honest, because we've talked about that they have some holes as far as individual defenders on this team.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they making up for it with, again, this kind of turnover? I mean, the live ball turnovers has been a huge number in these games.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think you're 100% right, and we've been talking about it kind of like on our post game videos, and of course, Leif and them on the pod. It's been obvious to anybody watching these games. It's not a coincidence. There's no way in hell that they're not drilling this, and I don't mean drilling like just working on it only. I mean like in the sense of this is one of their biggest points of emphasis. There's no way it's a coincidence. Like they're all getting in the passing lanes. They're all, showing off active hands. And yeah, it is starting with Jimmy. And I've been appreciative of what Jimmy's been doing to start this off, but it's the whole team. And you can give him the credit for setting the tone because he's the best at it. He's been one of the best in the league at it for years now, except maybe last season. But it is contagious, and I think they're all doing it. Like I've been really impressed with Terry, Tyler. Nico's gotten into it. Jaime had the 3 steals tonight. It's been every preseason game. Like they're just creating so much easy offense for themselves. And we've been talking about this for years. The entirety of 5 on the floor. Make it easier for your offense. By forcing the turnovers and getting points in transition, which the Heat have not been great at. I think that's been something they've been pretty good at so far. And not only does it take pressure off of your half court offense, right, by forcing turnovers and getting the easy transition points, it takes a lot of pressure off your half court defense too, to have to be playing at an elite level possession by possession. Because although it is great half court defense when you're forcing these turnovers, I just think in the sense of like you're taking away possessions where you might be, you might have a solid effort, the first effort, you might have a solid effort, for the second action, right? And then something happens at the end of the clock. You're taking away those opportunities completely for the other team, and you're scoring on the other side. So you're taking pressure off of your offense and your defense in the half court. And I think the way they're doing it is really smart. It's like, we don't think we're going to be able to just guard straight up every single time. So we're going to make these plays. And it's not as simple as just pressing a button and getting steals. Like they're putting in the work. They're timing these. It doesn't feel like a whole lot of like unnecessary gambling. It just feels like smart basketball, and there being an emphasis on it. And I think it's really smart. It's going to be really tough to keep this up throughout the entire season, right? To be, 15 steals a game. Like it's felt like they've been doing this whole preseason. It's going to be really tough to do that. But if they can keep up this effort and that energy of like, okay, it's going to be nothing easy, and they're going to have to be worried about that, right? Like you can't make the easy pass. You can't just drive by anybody. Like the hands are going to be there because the Heat are already a team that shrinks the gaps a lot and helps a lot on defense. So they're ready for that. But now, like when you add in the active hands on top of that, like that gets in your head as an offense. So I think, it's to me, it's been the number one theme of this preseason, not the only important theme, obviously, Bam shooting, their offense, all of that. But to me, this is the most important because it just makes things easier for both sides of the floor.
Well, and we're going to touch on the offensive part of that and Bam's place in it. But I think the one thing you mentioned also that bears watching is you mentioned it's hard to keep this up. It's also going to be hard to keep up this level of activity and energy. And that is the thing that some of the schemes that the Heat have run in the past defensively take a lot out of you. And this is one where they're trying to get easier baskets out of it on the other end to help the offense. And so, and converting from the defense to the offense. And so maybe that gives you a bit of a break without having to have sort of the mental work on offense in the half court. So there's a little bit of a push-pull here, but it is going to be hard to keep it up. I guess the question is, Major, do you think – because I've always thought Tyler's a decent off-ball defender. Like he will get in the gaps. He'll make plays. He's not afraid to go up. We saw the block the other night. He's okay there. Like I think he's fine. It's just when you're looking at, one-on-one or getting you in the pick and roll and isolating you, if they're gonna take this approach, can they play a Hero Rozier backcourt down the stretch?
I think it makes it much more likely. Both guys should be quick enough to get the steals. And, it does start with Jimmy and how you're saying, jumping the passing lanes. But the person that jumps out is Hero, I think, because you don't expect it as much from Hero. Like the help side going and stealing the ball, even when the offensive player isn't looking at them. Like, that's similar things being smart defense. And they're doing it in ways to where it's not compromising the defense. You see teams recklessly gamble all the time and then let up easy buckets. Well, the Heat do have really good half-court defense to where even when someone gambles and doesn't get it, they can recover, which only helps Hero and Terry be able to figure that out. Because if you don't have to be as good a one-on-one defender if you're creating steals and getting layups there, which fixes that whole problem. If you're able to steal a couple possessions, it's like in the NFL, you don't have to be a shutdown corner if you get picks consistently. Like, it's like a give and take there, and it's kind of that same thing. You are risking, and you're playing with quote unquote worse defenders out there, but if they're able to make up with that for easy steals and buckets, not just a steal and then slow it down, but steals and buckets, that really allows them to be able to play that style as well as play with quote unquote lesser one-on-one defenders out there.
All right, we're going to pivot to the third theme here, and this is worth a full podcast. So I don't want to go too deep on it now. But I mean, they're being very transparent with the offensive philosophy. And again, this is Eric Spoelstra looking at the personnel and basically saying, I need to wring as much out of this as I can. I mean, that's really where this is at. I think there's a recognition this team is not going to out-talent some of the teams, especially towards the top of the Eastern Conference, but maybe they can out-scheme them. And basically, they're running a modern offense now. I mean, at least in terms of the analytics and the structure of it. And it's like Tyler said the other night, we want threes and layups. That's it. And that's coming from a team that like literally lived in the mid-range last year. So I look, the shot charts for all three games when the regulars are playing have looked the same. Like, they are absolutely drilling. Tyler will not shoot a midi. He's avoiding them. Floater is like maybe the best thing he does. He won't shoot it. Do you think I said on playback, if anybody has watched the South Park episode where Cartman has to sing was a Christmas song and Mr. Garrison basically says, we're going to shock you for every curse word you use and just keep shocking. It's like Tyler's going to get shocked if he shoots a floater. Like, he's not allowed to shoot floaters anymore. So I guess I'll go to Major on this first. Like, is this sustainable? Because I'm just wondering, like, Jimmy and Bam are primarily mid-range players. And I get the analytics of it. And it's more in the playoffs where you really, because they take away those things and you got to get to the mid-range. But, I mean, are they going to resort back to what they typically done or no?
I think it's going to be in the middle. I don't think it's going to be the same like it is in the preseason, just jacking up threes and layups only. I mean, at the end of the day, mid-range is in these guys' DNA, and they're going to get to it at certain times, maybe when the game gets tight at the end or something like that. But, like, I know everyone mentions it, but Bam shooting threes, he doesn't even have to shoot it at a high clip, a semi-respectable clip. And just the willingness of even drawing out to the three-point line will help even those mid-range shots, getting them a little bit easier, because you see all the time someone driving with a center right there, it's a lot harder. So, like, even Tyler Hero getting to that floater in the regular season, which he probably will do more, maybe not at the level of last year, but not having a center right there is going to allow him to get an easier shot for that. And then it does kind of what we're talking about. Are they going to be able to sustain that defense? Well, playing this offense will allow you to not expend so much energy fighting for every little shot you're trying to get. I mean, it was a struggle to watch them try to score last year. And just by pure math and analytics, shooting more threes with solid three-point shooters, it's going to be a lot easier to score. And then maybe you can use that energy on defense, and then you will be able to sustain that defensive scheme for longer. So I think they all go hand in hand, and it's making the offense a lot easier to run and less expendable. And they're doing very interesting things, like having Jovic or Jimmy or Jaquez setting the pin down screens and stuff like that, which then they haven't really done it much this preseason, but you can run stuff off of that, and then just teams can't guard it, right? They either have to let Hero shoot a wide open three or Duncan shoot a wide open three, or you have a good cutter cutting. Like, there's nothing you can really do against that. So I think they'll be able to expand off of it to where it's not just purely threes and layups, and there'll be some more mid-range there. So I think it's going to be in the middle, not as bad as last year, not as great as this preseason. You have to take everything with a grain of salt in the preseason is basically what I'm saying.
Alex, we'll do a deeper drill down on this in a future episode. So I just want to close with this. Are you surprised that Spo has been so transparent with this stuff? It's like there's no hiding anything. Typically, he holds things in his back pocket, and they're just like, no, we're changing our defensive philosophy to some degree. We're changing our offensive philosophy. Here it is. Like, there's not going to be any surprises for teams' game planning. I mean, again, it's different from the NFL, obviously, in the NBA. But, like, as teams scouting them, it's going to be like, okay, this is what they're doing now. Like, they're not saving it for game 27. Here's my theory, and I want to let you close on this. I think they know their opening season schedule, and I think they know that they need to survive it. Okay?
Yeah.
So, like, you can't wait until game 25 to roll this shit out. That's how it looks to me, because we've talked about it. Like, their first 6 games, there's 3 dog teams in there, but then they go on a 6-game trip where they're going to be playing in Minnesota, Phoenix, Denver. They got 2 against Indiana. Like, they could get buried early this year. They could go 1-5 on that trip if they're not in sync.
Yep.
And so I know it just feels to me like he's just trying to get a head start on things this year. Does that make any sense?
I completely agree. And I think it makes sense for him to not be all like hiding, trying to hide what's going on, because I think anybody that watches it, like, there's no secret. It's not a coincidence that they're getting all these steals per game. It's not a coincidence that their points in the paint has been so much higher. Like, there's clear changes. I think they came in here with an emphasis to try to work out and get in the rhythm of doing before the regular season starts. And I think that's why we're seeing so many minutes for the core guys. I think, especially on the offensive side, because I think on defense, I don't see a lot of like big changes. I just think it's a more aggressive version of what they did last season and what they've done before, in the sense of like they're back to the drop that they were in last year, except now it just feels more aggressive, right? Like, they've always been a help team, a play the gaps team, but now it's like they're trying to get to the extreme as far as defensive playmaking to make up for, I guess, individual defensive strengths, right? And I think on the offensive side is really where the schematic changes are a lot bigger, a lot like it's extreme. It's an extreme change. Like you mentioned, they were number 1 last year in, like mid-range rate, right? As far as percentage of their shots coming in the mid-range. And like Major said, I think there will be a balance. I don't think it's going to be this extreme where like they're barely taking any, but there's clearly an emphasis on like, okay, we're going to get paint touches and we're going to move the ball. And part of it, of course, a big part of it is the fact that teams have to worry a little bit about Bam on the perimeter now. The fact that him and Jimmy are both willing to spot up, and not that they're high volume 3-point shooters, of course, or that they're knocked down, but they're going to be there, right? They can both hit an open 3. And I think them committing to this sort of 5-out doesn't mean it's going to fix everything, right? Like, they're going to be like the Celtics, who are just on fire because of their 5-out. The personnel is still not like, it's not like they've got knockdown shooters at every position, but the fact that they're committed to this, I think, is going to help a lot. And it makes so much sense that they're trying it out from the beginning. Like, this is not something you bring out later on. This is a big change, right? I don't think it's going to be 2018 Rockets level of like just threes and layups, but they're committed to those paint touches. They're committed to having their guys, spotting up and spacing the floor and not always having somebody in the dunker spot. I think those are things you have to work out from the start. And it's a big change for this team, because that's not really how it's ever been in the Jimmy and Bam era.
Well, it hasn't. And this has been, and we'll close it here. And thanks to Major and to Alex, this has been their least cryptic training camp and preseason that I can remember. Like, they're like, they rolled it out. This is our starting lineup. Like, there's no, we were saying it's going to be Jovic, it's going to be Highsmith. No, it's going to be Jovic. Okay. I was told there were 2 guaranteed starters, and then we get to camp and no, Terry and Tyler, media day, Terry and Tyler are starting. Like, they're not, I mean, hell, they Spo's been transparent about the offseason injuries, okay, and all that kind of stuff. Like, pretty soon they're going to be telling us he's going to be back in 17 days and all the rest of this, as opposed to just saying he's day-to-day and he's indefinite. It is a different heat approach, but my biggest takeaway from this whole thing is what Riley said at that presser. We want guys to play more. He played the regulars in both nights of a back-to-back in the preseason. Like, that's the old days, okay? Like, they are trying to set a tone here. I don't know if others took it as that. I absolutely think that is a top-down thing here, that they are trying to set a tone that our players are going to play, okay? And they need to, because they need to work, as Alex said, they need to work on this stuff, okay? Because it is a very different philosophy than they've used before. All right, thanks everybody for watching or listening, and thanks to Real Estate Shop. Check them out, realestateshopfl.com. Prize Picks, use the code 5. Also on Better Edge, we've got an NFL contest on there, so jump on that as well. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.